Everybody knows about the classics: Wendigo, Skinwalker, Bigfoot, Mothman, but there are so many cryptids that just about nobody is talking about on the internet. They're spread all across the world, and they come in all shapes and sizes. From a blue guy in Japan, to a hoax created out of sheer pettiness, and even a shape-shifting evil spirit that's afraid of the moon in Jamaica. Yo guys, I'm the Ratman, and today we're diving into the third installment of Obscure Cryptids. Yo, real quick, you should hit subscribe. Once we hit 500 subscribers, I'm going to go into a sewer to hunt a sewer beast that I saw one time. So subscribe so that you can watch me maybe die. Also, I got a Discord, link in description. You should join that. We have a lot of fun. And if you want merch, I may have, literally only 200 subscribers, but I made merch because I really like designing stuff. So if you want to get some cryptid merch, also I tried to keep it as cheap as possible. I only make $1 when you buy these shirts. They cost 20 bucks. 20 bucks, that's it. So try to keep it cheap for YouTuber merch. Now with all that out of the way, let's get into these obscure cryptids. First up on our list is a creature called the Red Ghost, or also known as the Phantasma Colorado. This is a cryptid from Arizona that at first glance just appears to be any old camel. However, when the Red Ghost gets close enough to you, you'll see that it's actually an emaciated, giant, red, demonically ugly camel with a skeleton tied to its back. Now, our first account of this creature comes all the way back from 1883 at a desolate little ranch near Eagle Creek in southeast Arizona. One morning, two men who lived at a ranch rode out to check on their livestock, leaving their wives and children at the house. Now, this is a very common practice, obviously. After a little while, the wives and children were getting thirsty, so one of the women left to go collect some water from the well. She left her children with the other wife, and I assume they were doing homeschooling or something. As the children and remaining woman remained at the house, just chilling inside, one of the dogs began to bark very, very ferociously and violently at something outside. Now, the woman was just about to investigate when she heard a horrifying scream. She quickly ran to the window to see what was causing the commotion, and as she did, a giant red thing with a devilish-looking creature strapped to its back dashed past the window. Immediately, the woman barricaded herself and the children inside the house and waited for the men to finally arrive back home later that night. Now, when the men got there, they went investigating for the other woman, and they found her near the well, trampled to death. The next day, they found the cloven hoof prints that were bigger than any other horse they had seen before, and around the well was scattered a bunch of red strands of hair. A few days later, some prospectors over near Clifton were rudely jolted awake in the night by the thunderous sound of galloping hooves that was coming towards them. Before they could react, their tent was collapsed and they were being beaten. Finally, as soon as the barrage stopped, they clawed their way out of the tents and they managed to catch a glimpse of the giant beast just as it crested a hill off in the distance. Around their campsite was massive cloven hoof prints, and red strands of hair were caught all in the nearby brush. Now, there were a few more stories about this creature, but since it's not the only one on the list today, I'm going to go ahead and move on to our next one. If you'd like a full video on this creature, make sure to let me know in the comments, because it is pretty interesting, and I could probably make a 10-minute video about it. Now, if we pan across the globe over all the way to Osaka, Japan, we will find the Human Blue. I like this name. It's just a funny name for some reason. Now, this creature was seen at an unspecified year, but it was in the month of June. The witness? A third grader in junior high. Now, this kid was looking out through the window at the park square when he noticed a tall, blue humanoid. The entity was around 7 feet tall, and it was glossy, almost as if it was wet. It had dark, narrow eyes that stayed focused on the alleyway that it was walking towards, and eventually, it entered the alleyway. Now, the boy had been around there before, and he knew that that alleyway was a dead end, but the creature never re-emerged. The kiddo decided to name this thing Human Blue, which as I said before, is a catchy, funny name for some reason. This information was collected by Mr. Bintaro Yamaguchi. He is a manga writer and a yokai researcher. This man is living my dream life, for realsies. I just said for realsies, unironically, I didn't even think about it. Now, if we travel to the west of Japan, we will find the Blue Skeleton Man in the Gato Islands. This cryptid comes with a photo which was taken and reported on by Takeshi Nakazawa in April 6th of 2009. April is important here. In this photo, we can see a blue skeleton-looking head thing that is peeking over a wall. Nakazawa analyzed the photo and concluded that the skeleton thingy had to be about a meter tall, or like 3.5 feet-ish. The thing to note about this photo is that it was taken in April, which just happens to be during the season that irises bloom. And if we look closely at this picture, it does very much so resemble an iris or some sort of flower that's growing on this roof. So what do you think? Is this a blue skeleton thingy standing behind the wall, or is it a blue iris that's growing on the roof for some reason? Honestly, I'd say 50-50 shot, bro. Either way, I can't tell. I can't decide, but it's one of... They're both even in my book, for sure. Now, something else just of note is the existence of Oni. Oni are a very common yokai that can be found in Japan. They're one of the most renowned. They come in all sorts of colors, but one of those colors is blue. Now, is it possible that one or both of these instances was an Oni sighting? Would be very interesting. I actually want to make like a whole video about Oni. They are so extensive, dude. Same with, how am I blanking on his name right now? I always know it's a name. I can't remember his name. There's a couple yokai that are super extensive and really interesting, and I would love to make full videos about them sometime soon, or even a yokai compilation, iceberg, something. Yokai are Sigma, bruh. Sigma. I just said Sigma unironically too, and then I made it ironic because it was weird. My vocab today. Now, I was talking about this creature, the blue skeleton man and the human blue, on stream, and one of the bros, the bros of the channel, pointed to me in the direction of a mural depicting a creature known as Gashadakuro. Gashadakuro. I don't know if they roll their... I don't think they roll their R's. This creature isn't blue, but it is a giant skeleton. It also is not obscure, but it is of note because it's in a similar vein. But it's born of the skulls of people who died either in like war or famine, and it tends to wreak havoc on the nearby villages and people until the anger of all the spirits inside of it dissipates. Like I said, this creature isn't really obscure, but it's really cool and worth a mention when something adjacent to it is brought up, so you know. If you want a dedicated video to this thing too, I could make one on that too. So let me know. Like, do a double whammy comment. Red Ghost and Gashadakuro. Now next up is another creature from Asia, although not in Japan this time, and it has a familiar trait, but it's got a new look. Actually, a familiar look mixed with a different familiar trait that I haven't heard put together before. This creature is known as the Kwai. It was another creature that was seen by an Asian school kid, although this time it was a group of school kids, so that's cool. On a warm night in March 1969, a group of school students were out playing on the beach when they heard the sound of a baby crying. This is where the familiar attribute comes in. Babies crying near bodies of water is a really common phenomenon that shows up like freaking everywhere, bro. I don't know what to say. It's just interesting. Now, obviously, the kids got worried about hearing a baby nearby, although I am curious if any of them had heard about a baby crying near water legend, since it's so, like, well known throughout everywhere. It seems like almost everybody has heard of one instance of that, so I'm curious. But this was 1969, so I'm not sure if it was as widespread back then. Now, the kids noticed that the sound was coming from the sea, so they began to peer up out at the water. Out there, they saw something lifting itself out of the water, about 18 feet from the shore. It looked more like a giant sea monster than a fish, another familiarity, but it had eyes that glowed green. Now, the kids estimated that this thing was up to 30 feet long. They named the creature Kwai, which means sea devil. Although in a Chinese word, Kwai means sea monster, so it's possible that it was a miswritten. It's possible that it was miswritten and they just called it a Kwai or sea monster. But either way, now it has its own unique name. Kwai hasn't been seen before or since. I'm actually surprised because off the top of my head, I can't think of a sea creature that has legitimately glowing green eyes. You know, like green eyes are attributed to sea creatures like sea monsters or swamp monsters and stuff of water, but legitimately glowing green eyes, I can't think of a creature that has those. So, which it just felt like a weird zip in my head because like that should exist, but I can't think of anything. Do you know of any creatures with green eyes from the sea? I don't know, man. Finally, getting back to the country that matters, Britain. I'm just kidding, that was blasphemy. America, the Cardiff Giant. This is a name that makes me think of a 95 Nissan Skyline GTR just togue drifting through the Appalachian Mountains. Cardiff. Now, I'm sure two of you laughed at that. Now, the Cardiff Giant is what's known as a Fiji mermaid, which means that it's a hoax used by somebody to obtain fame, fortune, or in the case of a Mr. George Hull, he just wanted to be petty. Now, first and foremost, Georgie Boy here was a New York tobacconist. That means he did stuff with tobacco, I think. And second most, he was atheist. Now, George had an argument with a fundamentalist, which is like Christian type, during which the topic of giants being mentioned in Genesis of the Bible came up. Now, I'm assuming that Georgie lost this argument since that is the only way somebody would be this petty enough to fabricate an entire petrified giant man, bury it in his backyard, and then come back to it like over a year later, okay? This man was dedicated. He lost the argument so badly, okay? Now I can just hear him saying, "Oh, that fundamentalist guy is gonna look like such an idiot when he gets all excited about me finding a petrified giant, only for me to pull the rug out from under him and reveal that it was fabricated by me." Alright, George. Alright. Now, George took some of his hard-earned tobacco cash, and he hired a team to carve out a 10-foot long, 4.5-inch block of gypsum and send it to Chicago. He then told them that it was for a New York monument dedicated to Abraham Lincoln himself. Once it was in Chicago, there was this German stonecutter guy that was hired to cut it to the likeness of a man. And Giorgio swore this man to secrecy. He did not want him telling anybody about what it was and what he was doing. He was all the way in Chicago, so I think it's fine though. I swear, he must have lost the argument so bad, bro. Now, this statue was colored with various stains and acids to make it look aged and worn. Then, this is a cool part because I didn't even think that this would work, but they put steel knitting needles into a board and then they just started smashing the statue in the face with it, and it emulated pores. Like, that's genius. That must have looked crazy. Georgia here was going all freaking out, bro. Now, George finally had the statue shipped to his property, where he immediately buried it behind his barn. After a year of waiting, again, the dedication to the petty is admirable, he decided that it was time to finally enact his plan. So, George hired a couple of well diggers, and he told them to make a well behind his barn. Oh no, what's gonna happen? They're gonna dig a well behind the barn. Sure enough, they dug straight into the petrified giant. Now, as we can tell, George here was a businessman, so obviously, he put a tent up over the thing and charged people 25 cents to come and view it. Now, a couple of days of booming business went by, and he made so much money that he decided to double the price. At this time, there were such large crowds that the legendary P.T. Barnum stopped by, and he tried to buy it off good old George, but George refused because he's a mad lad and was like, "Nah, bro, nah, I'm making my own money here, okay?" So, Barnum, who is also a businessman, hired a guy to model the giant perfectly out of wax and put his new fake giant on display in New York, claiming that the original Cardiff Giant was the real fake one. Wait. This is getting a little confusing. So finally, on February 2nd of 1870, in a court proceeding where George was trying to sue Barnum for stealing his giant, both of the statues were proven to be fake. Did George get his money back out of Barnum? No. The judge said that Barnum couldn't be sued for calling a fake giant fake or for making his own fake giant. Honestly, this is freaking hilarious, and the amount of absolute petty that George has is amazing, and I'm glad he was able to turn it into a profit somehow, honestly. Also, to this day, both giants, this is hilarious, both giants are on display in different places, and the owners argue about which one is George's and which one is Barnum's, meaning they're still arguing which one's the fake giant and which one is the fake giant. Freaking extravagant, my guy. Finally, our last cryptid for this video is finally from a completely different location. It's somewhere that I've never covered a cryptid from yet throughout my videos to this point. Jamaica, baby, bumbleclot! This cryptid is called the Rolling Calf. It is a shape-shifting spirit from Jamaican folklore. Another word for Jamaican spirit like this is duppy, which is funny. Similar to how Japanese have yokai. I just barely saved this thing's wiki page. It about got eradicated, just yeeted off of the cryptid Wikipedia. There was so little information about it, and it was literally scheduled for deletion. And I stumbled across it just in time to fill out the page and keep it from getting obliterated forever. And let me tell you right now, that was addicting. That was addicting, dude. Citing sources and adding information to Wikipedia is so addicting, I swear, that I just want to be a wiki writer now. I highly recommend it to anybody who likes researching and sharing information and actually knows how to cite stuff. Try it. I will get you hooked, okay? Anyways, stop distracting me. The rolling calf can range wildly in appearance due to its ability to shape shift. You never heard it said like that, have you? Now, the entity can appear as a cat, dog, pig, goat, bull, or horse, with the most dangerous being the cat and the most common being the goat. Now, of note, it can actually alter its size completely independent of what it's appearing as, although the smallest it can go is a cat, and the biggest it can go is like a full-grown bull. However, this means that you could get a bull the size of a cat walking through your village, or you could get a cat the size of a full-grown bull frickin' destroying all of the private property. Good thing Jamaica has trespassing laws, because... Now, the rolling calf was given its name because of how it rolls through town, not because it actually, like, rolls or anything, which, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit disappointed about. It causes passive destruction in its wake, similar to how, like, bandits, legendary bandits, Mr. Gunslinger McGunslinger guy rolled through town. Everyone knew it was a danger. Same thing here. Now, no matter what it's shapeshifted into, though, it will always have one front leg of a human, and then some sources didn't say this, but others did. It will also have one front leg of a horse. So these creatures originate from the souls of very wicked people, usually like butchers, murderers, or obeah men. And they've brought themselves back or been necromanced by another obeah man. Obeah men are similar to magic men and medicine man. They just practice magic and stuff. Now, they can be found naturally in a large range of habitats, such as bamboo forests, caves, or even abandoned houses. They are deathly afraid of the full moon, but only if you look directly at it. But unfortunately for them, that's literally the only time they come out, is during a full moon, so they often keep their heads down, I guess. So if you're messing with one of these dudes, how do you get rid of them? These things can go band for band with vampires when it comes to the weaknesses, I swear, dude. The most easy way to avoid getting mauled by one of these dudes is to cross the street. They don't like that for some reason, and they will not follow you. If there's not a street to cross, just drop a bunch of items and it'll be overcome with the power of obsessive compulsive personality disorder, saying that vampires have, and it'll begin to count the amount of items that you dropped. If you've got no streets and you ain't got nothing in your pockets, just stick a double-sided knife into the ground, and it doesn't like that either. Or you can whack it with a whip covered in tar, You don't have either of those? You're an idiot. Why weren't you prepared for this? Didn't you know that these things happen? You carry one of these on you. Freaking duh. Alright, if all else fails, you gotta try out the last option. Get this thing to look at the moon. This is most commonly done with mirrors, as it will not expect to look up and see the moon right in front of it, and, you know, that works. You could probably also use water reflection somehow, which seems like easier access if you don't have objects or streets. You're probably in the wild, and so there's probably no mirror, but, you know. Of course, you could also just wrestle this thing and force its head to look up towards the moon, but I have a feeling you might die first. Either way, you get it to look at the moon, it will instantly get immediately incredibly terrified, and it'll run off into the darkness. Now, I don't care how you got rid of the thing. If you didn't kill it, and I don't know how to kill it, so I can't tell you that, but if you didn't kill it, you're gonna want to leave the area. If you use one of these techniques to make the calf go bye-bye, it will come back later angrier than ever before. It'll be back with a vengeance. This means that you should grab your PS5 and other valuables and stay at your friend's house for a couple of days before returning home to see what's left of your house. This dude's actually really cool. I'm glad that I stumbled across this article. I need to look into some more Caribbean creatures sometimes, because I actually don't know, like, any of them, except for the giant island that's secretly a turtle, but that doesn't really count. That's like a famous folklore, so. Alrighty guys, I really hope you enjoyed this video. Again, please make sure to hit the subscribe button. I try to post videos like this once a week, although it's a little shaky, but I try. And once we hit 500 subscribers, I am going to go on a cryptid hunt in the sewers. We're trying to hit 500 before the end of the year, and I think we might still just barely have enough time with your guys' help. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Comment below. Let me know if you want me to do those other videos or if you've got any input at all. Check out the Discord. Link in description. Would love to see you there. And again, merch, guys. Merch. Look at this. It's so cool. It's so swag. I drew it myself. But look at that bad boy. Look at that. That one's awful. So I did a different one of that digitally, but you know, try it out. $20 a shirt. Not bad for YouTuber merch, right? Also, before I forget, for any of you who are still left sticking around, Thanksgiving video ideas, question mark? Any of you guys got ideas? The turducken? I don't know if that's a real thing or just a joke. I've thought about it though, because that would be something, right? But any of you guys have anything interesting that happened around Thanksgiving or monsters relating to Thanksgiving that I could cover in a video? Would love to hear about it in the comments or the Discord where I have a video ideas board. Either way. Anyways, happy Halloween, although you'll probably see this after Halloween. It's tomorrow at time of recording. But I hope the October canon event that everybody seems to always experience didn't hit too hard this year. I actually didn't have one this year. First time in forever. So that was epic, bro. Epic. But I really hope that you guys thought these cryptids were cool, you enjoyed learning about some new ones, and be on the lookout for the next Obscure Cryptids Volume 4, because I will be doing a lot of these probably. And I also might start doing icebergs, because those get a lot of views. I ain't even gonna lie, that's why I would do them. Out the wazoo, dude. I think that's everything, so I'm gonna head out. Thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, God bless, Ratman out.